Hello and welcome back to another episode of Average Guy's Garage. Here we're at a 2003 F150 Super Cab, and the battery light has come on. So we're going to do some diagnosis and see if we can figure out why that has come on. Is it undercharging, overcharging? Is the alternator going out? See, on the battery gauge here, it looks alright, but we're going to put a multimeter on there, see what we can find out inside. Well, other than it just looking pretty bad, we're going to get the multimeter set up. So we're going to be on voltage DC, 20 volt max, find out what we got. So it's registering, it says at 10, and of course it should be around, 12 plus. So it could be these battery terminals being pretty messed up. So we're going to start with that first, see if we can get something better after they're cleaned up, and if not, the next place to look would be the alternator. Alright, so now we have used a tool to clean the posts and to ream out the terminal so we get a good connection. So we're going to put it back together, fire it back up, and then check the voltages again. Well, it turned out that the battery was the problem and was not the problem. So the issue is going to turn out to be the alternator needs to be replaced. However, the battery, coincidentally, or maybe because of the alternator issue, had a bad cell. So when I put the battery back in, it wouldn't start up. After I hooked it all together and cleaned the posts, it wouldn't start up. And it was down to about 9 volts. So I jumped it, and it still didn't hold a charge. Or, it wouldn't charge up. So I took the battery out, took it over to the parts store, and they charged it. It was a 50% charge when I got there, and they charged it up. And then when they tested it, it said it had a bad cell. So I had to buy a new battery. So hoping, hey, maybe that's the issue. I brought it back, put it in. But no go, the battery light was still on. So that's indicative now that it is the alternator. So we're going to take the alternator out, and that's going to involve removing this plenum work here for the air intake, and then the alternator on these trucks sits right here, right in the center, right up at the top. So it's not too hard to get to once you get this air intake off, or the air handlers here. So we'll get started on that, and then we will talk about the steps. So the first thing you want to do when you're working with anything electrical is always disconnect that negative post, and then I have it isolated with the paper towel there. And we'll move on to getting this air handler off. Alright, so here we are now. The 2003 F150 5.4 has this cover that has to come off. So we took that off. Then we pulled this hose out and then undid the band holding that onto the choke. And then also over here, we disconnected the sensor here, so that'll have to go back on, but that gave us access to the alternator right there. So we can start taking that apart, take a few wires off, take the belt off, and then we take the bolts off the bracket, and then there's 2 bolts at the bottom that are up near the front. There's one right there in the center and on the other side, and hopefully this one is slotted so we can just lift it out without having to take them out of the block, the bolts out of the block. Okay, so here is the alternator out, and it was not the newer kind that slotted on the bottom, so I had to take those bolts completely out from the block. But on this one, there's only 1 bolt on top on this bracket right there. Other models have a horseshoe bracket with 4 bolts on it, but this one just had that 1 bolt to take out. So we're going to go to the parts store, have it tested, and probably bring back another one. Alright, we're back with a new alternator. It did turn out after testing that the other one was bad. So this should be the fix. We'll get this in. Just reverse everything we did. We'll put it in, bolt it in, and then get the cables back on. There's 3 cables. Put the the baffles back on, that cover back on, hook the battery back up, and we'll give it a test. So I will get back here in a second when I get everything back together. Alright, the new alternator is in. The belt is back on, and the connectors are in. Making sure that I covered up this hot lead here with the rubber. Make sure these were seated properly in their clips. So now we're going to move on to putting these air plenums back on. Okay, the plenum is back in place. There was 1 band right there. Had to put this connector back in, this sensor connector back in, and this band. And this one had a specific place to go because it had a notch right here for the band to line up with. So now we'll put that cover back on. We're almost done. Hook up the battery and give it a test. Alright, it's all back together. There's the dome, or the hood light. I've got just another quick check. That's back on, looks good in there. Those connectors are good. Battery's connected. Let's go give it a try. Fingers crossed. All right. Start it up. No more battery light. So what we can do, let's just take the multimeter now and let's go check and see what it's charging at. This morning I drove it for about 8 miles, and the battery was the brand new battery from yesterday, and it ran down about from 12.2 to 12.0 in 8 miles. So let's see what it looks like now. See if I can do this. Alright, I'm going to set the camera down where it's looking at the numbers. There we go. So I can use two hands. Alright, 14.12. So it is getting a charge. It's getting a charge from the alternator now. Wonderful, I love it. All right. Well, that was a 2-day project, and it didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to start with just the battery. But it worked out good. The battery was about $100 with a discount. The alternator, low end, $100 with a discount. And so let's call that a good fix for average guy's garage. This is replacing the alternator on a Ford F150, 5.4 liter, 2003 F150. So thanks for watching.